Hey everybody, Philip Mershon here with another look into mid-century life. Today we're going to dive into a relatively crazy period of automotive history. It's the lovingly, well, perhaps not quite so lovingly called Malaise Era of American cars that lasted, give or take, from the early 70s to the mid-80s. Now, before we even get to the cars, let's define the word malaise. It's a French word that essentially means the general feeling of discomfort, illness, or uneasiness whose exact cause is difficult to identify. And that feeling, believe it or not, hung over American society in the 1970s and early 80s. Why? Glad you asked. You know I love context. Well, first of all, we start with the final months of the Vietnam War. Then there's the massive distrust of government because of the Watergate scandal. Then recession, inflation that became so pernicious that it was termed the Great Inflation, and so unending that it later got rebranded again as stagflation. And by the end of the decade, the proposed solution to all this horror, the great lie of the trickle-down economic theory. So to drill down, what caused the automotive malaise? Well, it was a perfect storm of factors. First, we had the 1973 oil crisis, and I remember the cultural punch this delivered distinctly. Gas prices shot through the roof. The sudden scarcity of supply created a hoarding mentality. This resulted in the odd-even system, whereby if the last digit on your license plate was an even number, you could only buy gas on even-numbered dates, and vice versa with odd numbers. And topping off the tank was strictly forbidden because it would just add to the length of the already blocks-long lines at your local gas station. There were stations who had hired attendants to walk the line, peek in at your gas gauge, and if you had more than half a tank, you were given the heave-ho. So suddenly, those big, thirsty V8 engines that the Detroit auto industry had prided themselves on didn't seem so appealing. Oh, and simultaneous to this came the heightened focus of safety regulations, leading to features like those massive, heavy 5-mile-an-hour bumpers. Remember those? I mean, you could serve a dinner party off those things. And finally, increasingly strict emission standards were introduced to combat smog. Oh, yeah, I guess I forgot to mention that the late 60s and early 70s saw some of the worst smog in every urban center of the country. So automakers, bless their hearts, were kind of caught in the middle, trying to pivot and adapt their vehicles to be more efficient, safer, and cleaner, all the while grappling with the sudden uptick in popularity of economy imports like Datsun, Toyota, VW, Mazda. It was a tough balancing act. Oh my God, here's another memory. One Saturday morning in the spring of '74, right before my 15th birthday, my parents walked out the front door together. She got into her black 1967 Cadillac Fleetwood Brougham. He hopped into his blue 1967 Pontiac Tempest, and off they went. Several hours later, they rolled back up into the driveway in two brand new VW Super Beetles. Hers was green, his was orange. The era saw many sweeping changes. Engine horsepower. This had always been arrived at by putting a bare engine on a mounting stand without connecting a water pump alternator or any other accessories, race tuning it, pushing it to the max, and then measuring the gross horsepower. This resulted in advertisements that boasted 350 to almost 400 horsepower. Well, seeing the federally required emission standards on the horizon, the automakers started to advertise only the net horsepower, which is the measurement you get when you put an engine in a car and connect it to all the engine-y things, which often gave readings of 100 or more less horsepower. And I think this was a calculated move on their part to say, see, we're not that bad. Look how much smaller and more efficient these numbers are. But it ultimately really only gave the appearance of a trending weakness. Once the emission control systems were mandated, which further choked the performance, The company stopped advertising horsepower numbers altogether and started boasting of the size of their engines in cubic inches. Nope, not going to go there. Tempted, but no. Think of it this way. Instead of a roaring lion, you now got more of a purring kitty cat. But here's where it gets interesting and why I respect those manufacturers' design teams. The Malaise Era gave us some gloriously distinctive design features. Take the incredible variety of vinyl tops just for starters. There was full vinyl, half vinyl, landau vinyl, floating vinyl. We saw plush velour and leather interiors with the kind of intricate pillow stitching that felt like sitting on your living room couch. Some had factory upholstery designs that could make your eyes dance, or cross, depending on the case. There were opera windows, those small, often oval-shaped windows in the C-pillar, very classy. And beautifully designed instrument clusters on the dashboard resplendent with fake wood grain. It was an era of the personal luxury car. Models like the Olds Cutlass Supreme, Pontiac Grand Prix, Mercury Cougar, they all embodied the spirit of the moment. And these babies weren't about quarter-mile times, they were about quiet cruising. They were personal cocoons designed to insulate you from the outside world, where the added speakers enhance the boom of your factory-installed 8-track tape player, and plush seating only emphasized the incredibly soft, floaty suspensions. I would absolutely give anything to drive my mom's '76 Chrysler Cordoba again. Yeah, after a couple years of personal austerity, she traded in the VW. So while the Malaise Era might get a bad rap for its subdued performance, it forced innovation in fuel efficiency and safety, and it left us with a legacy of incredibly comfortable, distinctively styled, and yes, sometimes quirky automobiles that tell the story of a unique period in American history. Next time you see one of these Malaise Era machines, maybe shoot the driver a thumbs up for preserving history. If you're lucky enough, you might get a tap from the horn in an acknowledgement. And if that happens, you'll be surprised at just how good a full-throated car horn can sound. Well, that's it for this episode. Please like, subscribe, and comment. I love reading your comments. And if you'd like to further support my work, there is a Buy Me a Coffee link in the description box. I love hanging out with you all, and I'll see you in the next one. Drive safely.